Tell me Americans haven't committed
Oh
war crimes.
God.
It's absolutely absurd. We do. And what are we, radical Christians, or what are we? You
Right.
know, what are we? So I would argue that Hamas has been more moral as a fighting
Mm.
force than Americans have been in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Vietnam. You know, like what did we do? We carpet bombed the entirety. We dropped more bombs in
Right.
Vietnam than all of World War II, literally.
That is the United States of America, and it is atrocious. And if the American public even had a 10% understanding of the
Mm.
criminals who run our country, the revolution would begin tonight. Welcome to Far Out with Faust, everybody. I am Faust Chicho, and I am honored and as excited as I can remember to be joined by none other than Ken O'Keefe. In case you have not heard of this man, let me remind you a little bit about what he's been up to in the last 20, 30 years of his life. So in an age where green card holders are getting deported for speaking out against the ongoing genocide against the Palestinian people, Ken O'Keefe emerges once again as a voice for the oppressed, a voice for true history of that region and the world, and a survivor himself of the ongoing apartheid and attacks and prosecution of the Palestinian people and anyone who dares to stand in front of them against this oppression by the Israeli regime. His journey from U.S. Marine to outspoken anti-war activist is well documented, and his popularity has actually only grown since the events of October 7th. Ken is known for his participation in the Gaza Freedom Flotilla and his role as a human shield in Iraq. We're going to talk about that too. Ken's actions have sparked global debate, of course, earning him both admiration and condemnation and slander. Ken's story is a testament to the power of conviction in a conformist world. It's a testament to sticking to your guns, sometimes quite literally, and listening to your heart, even when it puts your life at risk. And I'd like to personally say that since the Israeli false flag of October 7th has sent the greater Israeli project into absolute turbo drive, I've had a chance to really get familiar and become very much an admirer of Ken and his work and his unwavering integrity and courage in speaking out for the people of the world who are oppressed. And that right now, of course, is the Palestinians more than anyone. So Ken, without further ado, thank you so much for beaming in, brother. I'm so excited to have this conversation.
My blessing, brother. And I'll start it off by giving all praise to God, man. That's where it all comes from. So thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. So you have an unprecedented level of firsthand knowledge and experience, and you're also a very educated man. And when I say educated, of course, I'm not referring to anything that has to do with Rockefeller or his system. I mean, you know your history, you know what's up. And not just with the conflict in the Palestine and that area of the world, but with the bigger geopolitical and financial undercurrents that we're, all kind of being swept away by. But first, I like to start here because Wikipedia just loves my YouTube channel. I should say, YouTube loves adding, quote, context to most of my interviews. So you get an idea of the kind of interviews I like doing. But, Wikipedia is going to be adding their own context to my discussion just because you are the subject of my interview. So let's beat them to the punch. All right. I'm going to summarize some of the highlights that Wikipedia has about you. And, I figured it's a great place for us to we'll start a little back and forth. You're an American Irish Palestinian citizen, correct?
I am. The one thing that they refuse to add to that is I actually have my Hawaiian passport right here.
Okay.
They don't want to recognize. It's funny, I mean, of all the controversial things, I'm actually a Hawaiian national as well.
Wow.
But they don't want to recognize the existence of the Hawaiian kingdom. I made a film called The United States of Hypocrisy 26 years ago. And this is back in a different day of video editing, man. It was a whole different animal back then. And I spent 9 months making that film. That was my gift to the Hawaiian kingdom and its people, the Kanaka Maoli, and they're being genocided to this day. And funny enough, I was in Maui when the so-called wildfires happened.
Wow.
And I talked to witnesses who saw people burn alive and literally turned back by the cops into the death zone. We know that I would encourage people to invest in blue roofs.
Yeah,
Literally.
even Biden said it by accident.
Like,
Remember that slip up? Oh
oh
my
my
God.
God, yeah, it's just one joker after another, one traitor after another, and each one of them seems to like little kids, and each one of them should be in prison, if not executed and deballed, and that penis taken
Listen,
off as well. I tell you.
I've done extensive specials on the Clinton Bush crime family, and it's just amazing to me that the more depraved and criminal activity they can accumulate in a life, the higher the office they are rewarded with. That is the United States of America, and it is atrocious. And if the American public even had a 10% understanding of the
Mm,
criminals who run our country, the revolution would begin tonight. There would be pitchforks and torches, and that it would be the end. Or they would be in shock for about 24 hours, and then they would begin. But one or the other.
yeah,
That's how bad it is.
this is the intoxication of willful ignorance and the dumbing down and the ideological subversion that people have been intoxicated with Walmart and cheap gas, and I
Yeah,
feel for them. I really do. I have no hatred for my birth nation at all. But if karma is a reality, America's got hell to pay.
that's for sure. There's and the vast majority of people are shockingly ignorant, and most of them in denial. But that's part of the indoctrination of being raised in this country is being sung the song and dance that we're the great heroes, the great liberators. We're spreading democracy.
Well, I
um,
mean, that uniform behind me. I mean, I don't have that dress blue uniform behind me because I'm proud. I'm not a prideful person anyway. That's just one of the seven deadly sins right there. I'm very blessed. I'm a very blessed man. But when I was young and dumb, I believed that my nation was the greatest, and I was willing to kill or be killed for,
that's
my
right.
nation. So,
You're
I think it's important for all of us to be able to, it takes a better man to admit when he's been wrong rather than
hmm
double down on your own stupidity. And this is
hmm
why America is where it's at. This is going to be a painful, bitter pill, but it's going to be swallowed, whether the American people like it or not. You're going to have to swallow the truth, and it's not going to taste good at all.
No, no. It's going to cause a lot of nausea, that's for sure. But it's common, it has to come. The universe, God demands balance, and you can only keep a lie for so long. You can only keep a great truth hidden for so
Yes.
long. It's like water. It's going to seep out. It's going to find a way through. So, you have served our country. You're a former U.S. Marine, Gulf War veteran. You led the Human Shield action to Iraq, which, just to give a quick summary for everyone listening, that, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Ken, but you organized citizens to go to Baghdad, to where you knew that there would be targets and infrastructures being bombed, and you tried to place American lives there to stop America from going into war again and destroying those people. Does
Yeah.
that sum up what the Human Shield
Well,
Action project was about?
what it really all comes down to is the grotesque disparity of the value of life. So as we see, we've heard about October 7th and the so-called 40 babies and the that did not happen. And even the
Right.
Israeli press have said that and confirmed that. But that lie was repeated over and over as if Jewish life is so much more precious than Palestinian lives. I've said it a million times and I say it again. It is disgusting. It is unacceptable. And anybody who applies any kind of supremacist values, i.e., my life is so much more important than yours, and I'm willing to pay taxes for the bombs to drop on the people that literally buries children alive, well, that's a problem for me. That's a big problem. The Palestinian lives are every bit as precious as everybody else's
That's
lives.
right.
But the point of the human shields was to tap into this disparity. So the logic was that according to the Four Geneva Conventions, electrical power plants, water storage facilities, and water treatment plants, which supply critically needed resources. Water, you will die if you don't have clean drinking water. In fact,
hmm
people are dying in Gaza today, not only from starvation, but from waterborne diseases.
Of
So,
course.
tapping into the disparity and the grotesque nature of how we value life, I knew it was necessary, and I said flat out, there's no way any of these protests are going to stop this. This is predetermined. This is part of the Greater Israel Project. It's about securing oil, permanent military bases in the region, ensuring the imperial nature of America continues. And it was all just smoke and mirrors and lies, and based on the massive lie of weapons of mass destruction. Anyway, the bottom line is that we had 3 double-decker buses that traveled from London down to Baghdad, and there were about 500 human shields there at the peak. But the bottom line is it was infiltrated, and this has been a problem that I've really had to deal with throughout my life, including even now. I'm getting attacked by my so-called allies. But anyway, the bottom line is this: we had 500 human shields at its peak. We had human shields at 5 sites in Iraq when shock and awe occurred. And the United States and the so-called coalition of the willing, they hit all the infrastructure. So they hit the food storage sites, they hit the water treatment facilities, they hit the electrical power plants, but they did not hit those 5 sites that we were at. My argument was that if we had gotten 10,000 people there, we could have stopped the invasion, or at the very least, there would have been Western citizens and their body parts and their blood spilled all over there with, what, 1 million dead Iraqis? And that would have caused a problem. And this is what I would argue, when are the real men going to stand up? Because we have failed so miserably that the United States is now the mecca of sex slavery and child sex slavery. This is not disputable. This is an absolute fact. And it's under the watch of the so-called men and patriots of America. And your willful ignorance is not going to do anything when you meet your maker. Oh, I didn't know. Well, I gave you a brain, my son. You were meant to use it.
A will and a brain.
Yes.
Which is all you need, and I was just watching a clip from, I think it was when you were speaking in Copenhagen, I think, at
the Open Mind Conference.
Yeah. And, you said something which I talk about a lot. You said what people fail to understand is that the news is the way it is, so that you will become you will become a cynic. You will be consumed by apathy, imagining that your voice doesn't matter because this world is fucked. And that's just not true. That's just that's the belief system they want you to adopt and have, because if you're taught that this world is fucked anyway, then why bother? Yeah. You're going to imagine you're throwing a little twig into the river to try to dam it. And that's just not true. The world has never changed because of that. It's changed because people realize that their voices do matter, and people don't understand the level of manipulation that has gone on in our society. And so they adopt the thoughts they're programmed with. And I see it across the board. I try to encourage people to snap the fuck out of it. It's not cool to sit and watch as someone puts their boot on a child's throat. That's not okay in any world, and it shouldn't be in ours.
Well, anyway, I find really, a very topical subject, and I brought this up many times before. If you went back to the times of the founding fathers, like the Patrick Henrys, give me liberty or give me death. Now, notwithstanding the Freemasonry elements and all of the secret agendas and so on and so forth, it does not change the fact that there were real warriors back then. And if you had asked King George III, who was taxing the American colonies without representation, when they basically said, you know what, we've had it with that. We're not going to accept taxation without representation. Why are we paying all of our hard-earned money for the King George over there? If you had asked King George or his little stool pigeons, his little minions, who are the terrorists of the day, it would have been the founding fathers of America. So I look at the Palestinians this way. I'll be damned if I was born in Palestine or Syria or Iraq, and some foreign nation came from halfway around the world, invaded my nation, started raping, pillaging, and destroying my country. What would I do? You could not pay me to be nonviolent. I would fight, I would kill, and I would die if necessary. There is no way I would sit by, and I would be called a terrorist if I were a Palestinian or if I were Iraqi. And the double standard could not be more insane.
It's literally, we live in an inverse world. We'll eventually talk about that, because there's no bigger terrorist than the United States in the world. There's not even a front runner. Israel's like our little demonic bastard child, but
Well, there
even
you go.
they can,
That's where America is the greatest. Oh yes, we
Yep,
are the greatest terrorist on the planet. That is for sure. Yes,
yep. That's it. That we win that one, no, hands down. That
hands
and
down.
probably unhealthiest population,
And
but
and the worst part of it is that it's not even really America. We're a podunk little bitch for the Jewish state of Israel. Fact.
essentially, yeah. And that is the sad truth that is making its way out into the forefront. Now the question is, can anything be done about it at this point? It's going to take a tremendous act of will, but I do see encouraging signs. I saw that, the mayor of New York made a very bold and courageous stance against Zionism. When every one of those stooges said, "Oh, the first thing I'll do is fly to Israel," like
Yeah.
rehearsed little minions. I was like, "What? What? That's the first thing you're going to do in office is fly the fuck out of New York City?"
Or how
How is
about
that?
Ted Cruz? That was great on Tucker Carlson, eh?
Oh yeah, my
I,
God!
I joined. I wanted to be a congressman to be the greatest advocate for Israel. What? For
Like
it?
so
What? What?
where,
Well, I guess.
dude?
Oh, that explains it. Yeah. That might explain why America's being flushed down the toilet.
Right,
And
and
the
why he's got
American.
millions from APAC? Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Literally,
unbelievable.
like literally, we're the little state that funds the high standard of living in Israel. Free
Literally.
health care, free education.
For the settlers, for actual terrorists who are
It's
who are in charge of stealing and terrorizing. I mean, it's outrageous. But so you had a very, very incredible. You were involved in an incident that you were a passenger on the MV Mavi Marmara during
mm,
the Gaza Flotilla raid.
mm.
And this was a raid, and there was two Israeli commandos who boarded the ship, who you ended up disarming, and that initiated a confrontation in which 10 Turkish activists were killed eventually.
Well, let
Of
me
course,
just let me just
go
correct
ahead.
that a bit because that's
Sure.
actually funny enough. That's one of the controlled opposition agents. The woman who was cited in that article, which I believe it's either the ADL or the Southern Poverty Law Center, or something like that.
No.
It's one of these Jewish institutions. They cite this one woman, Greta Berlin, who says
Oh
that
yeah.
I first off, before I came into contact with an Israeli commando, they had I don't know how many they had on their total, but there would have been dozens by the time they all boarded. But when I was at the back of the ship, and my job was to help protect the boarders who were the Israelis that were coming from the Zodiacs and throwing grappling hooks over. We were easily able to repel that. But then I saw the
Hmm.
helicopters come, the Black Hawks. As a Marine, I've done what those commandos were doing. It's called fast roping. And so they came over the top deck and they throw the rope down. It's a thick rope like this, and you have gloves on, and you put your hands around the rope like that. You take your feet and you wrap your feet around both sides, and you can grab the rope. You can shoulder holster your submachine gun, and then you descend down, and boom, you can let go like that. You don't have to disconnect. So I
Right.
saw them coming down from there. They were already shooting from the helicopters. They had laser guided rifles, sniper rifles. They were firing percussion grenades. And when I left that station, I said to my guy, the commander in charge of me, I was second in command. I said, "Hey, they need help up there. Do you mind if I go up there?" He said, "Yeah, no, go." So I started heading up there. And when I started heading up to the top deck, literally one of the commandos got pushed over the top rail and fell about 8 feet down, and he fell right in front of me. And that was the first one. And when I saw him, I literally I pounced on him, and he had a 9 millimeter pistol, and I removed that from him. And then some of the other brothers grabbed him and pulled him inside the ship. I then had that 9 millimeter pistol. I held it in this position, and ultimately I was trying to figure out where to hide it or put it. It was
Hmm.
evidence, and my hope was that we would still be able to repel the attack and continue on to Gaza with the humanitarian aid and so on
Right.
and so forth. After I took the bullets out of the weapon, I gave the bullets to some people on the ship, said, keep that for evidence. And then I hid the weapon. And then I started to go back up to the top deck. Now, by this time, I've already seen two dead bodies, and there were several others that were shot. Dozens were shot. People were bleeding. A husband was dying in the arms of his wife, literally. And so when I started to go back up to the top deck, another commando was pushed over the top. Now, this one had a submachine gun shoulder holstered, and he was fully alert. And literally, if it had taken me even a split second longer, because he fell, I was a few feet away from him. I saw him fall. He saw me, and he was working to get to his weapon, and he was literally getting his left hand on the stock and getting his trigger finger on the stock there to grab the trigger. And as he did that, I literally got to him and I grabbed his hands. I peeled his hands off of the weapon. If I had gotten there a second later, he would have swung it around and boom,
Right.
I would have been gone. But I got to him. I pulled his hands off and started to take the weapon off. And another brother came and he was trying to grab the weapon from him. And I told him, like, take it off his shoulder. It's shoulder holstered. And he did that, pulled that weapon away. And then I was in the mount position on that Israeli commando. And with that one, I did actually give that one a right straight. And I gave him one. So of the two, we disarmed 3 commandos that night. I managed, by the grace of God, to get 2 of them. One of them has a bruise under his left eye there, and that's from me. That was a little gift from me. But I will finish off the story by saying that then the captain said to stop resisting, stop resisting. I'm a captain as well, so of course you follow the orders of the captain. And we stopped resisting, and I went inside the ship, and I made a point. The 3 commandos were in there, and I literally walked up to each one of them, and I was like this far away from their face, looking right into their eyes, and I looked into their eyes straight. And I swear to you, I saw little frightened children. They have no God. And when they were facing their death, I know what a warrior looks like. When he knows he's going to die, you accept that. You're willing to die, because if you die a noble death, hey man, you're going to enter the kingdom of heaven if you've done the right thing. And I much more fear the wrath of God than I do any mortal payment that I might make for doing the right thing here. And believe you me, I've contemplated every kind of death, and I know what my enemies will do to me if they get their hands on me. I know exactly how brutal it's going to be. So the bottom line is this: God is what gives me my strength, and I serve him. I only serve him. I only bow to him. I don't bow to any man. I don't bow to any nation. I don't bow to any president. No, I only bow to him. So when I looked into their eyes, I swear to you, they looked like little frightened children, and they thought they were going to die. They thought we were going to do to them what they were doing to us. And they murdered. They murdered 10 people. 6 of them were executed at point blank range.
And they were probably unarmed, were they not? I mean, this was
we were all unarmed. Unless you consider having sticks and hitting them with sticks. Okay. Sorry, guilty as charged. And I didn't have a stick anyway. I had my hand. Right. So
I appreciate you laying that out so that people understand.
Yeah, I did not start this, man.
No, Wikipedia would have you believe that it was Ken's fault why the 10 people were. And honestly, this is why we're having this part of the conversation right now, because if you just go to Wikipedia, you're going to get the oligarch version of events they want you to believe. It's nonsense.
There's some truth in there. There is, but this is unsubstantiated bullshit. And how could you possibly say that I'm on a ship? I'm on a humanitarian aid ship that is heading to Gaza to deliver much needed aid 15 years ago. It was needed. And I'm the guy who instigated this? Excuse me.
You're the terrorist.
We're in international waters on a humanitarian aid mission. You guys fly in, you come with weapons, you shoot people dead, you execute people, and I instigated this? Okay. Sure thing, mate.
Ken O'Keefe. It was all Ken O'Keefe's fault. That guy with the tattoos. Yeah. So, Wikipedia also makes mention of a few things. And, since there are still, sadly, a lot of people who use this as a source of context and reference for everyday things, people, events, films, sadly, I want to just address this because, I've looked into it. I understand the truth of it, but they would have you believe that you are some kind of white supremacist. Meanwhile, you're a Palestinian. Last I checked, Palestinian people were not white. If they were, none of this would be happening. Anyway, I'm not quite clear on how someone could be a Palestinian citizen with family, having lived there, and also be somehow a white supremacist. This is very
Well,
confusing to me, but I
not
want to
not
give you a chance. Yeah.
not only that, I mean, I knew I was living in Hawaii. I used to be in my former life, I was a dive instructor and a boat captain, and I had a business on the North Shore of Oahu. It was a
Nice.
magnificent business. The same attitude I carry into my activism with regard to human rights or Palestine or any of that. I did that with marine conservation, and I again, by the grace of God, I ended up rescuing 46 green sea turtles personally. Like this is unheard of. I
That's
was
right.
in the news every other day practically, rescuing 3 turtles a day wrapped in fishing line. I was doing ghost net recoveries down to depths of 200 plus feet deep. 13 of those. We were doing beach cleanups. And I literally led the charge to the creation of a marine sanctuary on the North Shore of Oahu, which, by the way, I get no credit for. Although the news stories and everything prove he's led the charge to create a,
Right.
he's the guy who's getting this all in the news. But the point is that I was living in Hawaii, in paradise, on the beach with my own
Mm.
business, doing what I love, had 2 boats, and 9/11 hit. And I had an Iranian who was actually, I had met, I liked him and he was smart. And
Hmm.
I said, hey, if you want to hang out, you can, take a bed in my place. And so we were both there, and I got a phone call because Hawaii's way behind New York. It was like,
Hmm.
it was still dark. And I got calls saying, dude, turn on the TV, turn on the TV. And I'm like, why? And it's like, dude, turn it on. And I
Yeah.
turn it on and I'm watching 9/11 happen. And I just knew instantly, like, oh boy. And
Yeah.
I already was tangling with the police in Hawaii because I'm an oath-taking Marine, right? I've
Hmm.
driven across the United States, no license, no tax, no registration, no insurance, according to the law. Because
Hmm.
according to the law, if you're not involved in commercial activity and transport, you do not require a license. Why am I the only guy who knows this? I don't know, but that's the law. And I literally was tangling with the police, and they were coming after me because of that work that I was doing for Hawaii. I was literally
Wow.
charging 2 congressmen and 2 senators with fraud and conspiracy in a policy of genocide. So I was on the radar, and I already had a $11,000 bench warrant issued for my arrest. I'm literally the owner of my own dive company, picking up my customers at the Turtle Bay Hilton with these
Wow.
tattoos, right? And I've got an $11,000 bench warrant issued for my arrest for a minor traffic violation that wouldn't even warrant a $500
Wow.
warrant. It would literally, it was a misdemeanor, no accident, no insurance claim, no nothing. So when 9/11 hit, I knew, like, obviously I didn't know what the hell was going on as a whole, but what I did know is that what we were told, what we were being told, was absolute bullshit. And 3 buildings, more than 3 buildings, actually taken out with 2 tin can planes, fires. And I became good friends with Rudy Dent, who was the chief fire investigator on the day. God bless him. He's passed on. But the bottom line is, I knew it was a false flag of some nature, and I also knew very early that it was not Muslims at all,
Hmm.
at all. And even a year later on CNN, literally just over a year later, because of the Human Shields thing, I was invited on CNN, and it was live. If I'm live on, that's why they don't invite me. If I'm live,
Yeah.
if I'm live on national or international TV, I'll tell you what, then it's no holds barred. Then,
Right.
if it's recorded like Hard Talk, I've done BBC Hard Talk twice.
Yeah. They'll just edit around all the good stuff.
I did not bring up 9/11 because of, I knew, like, oh man, if I hit this too far out of the park, they're just not, they're going to
Mm.
edit it out. And literally, they did edit out one thing where I said I don't pay income tax in America. They literally edited that out of the second one. But my point is, I knew that it was a false flag. And I knew that I would not be able to keep my mouth shut. I knew how stupid the American people were in buying this crap.
Yeah.
And I literally told my mom, who became my partner in that business after I had started it, I said to mom, Mom, I got to go. I
Yeah.
cannot stay here. And I literally fled Hawaii, my paradise life. I fled Hawaii and I went to Holland, the Netherlands, and I sought political asylum. And I literally became a political asylum seeker in Holland. I'm like the only American ever. And they tried to get me out. They're like, oh my God, we don't want this nightmare.
Right.
And I proved. And one of the things that was key to that proving that I'm a legit target because of my political activity was that $11,000 bench warrant. Explain
Wow.
that. Why am I getting an
Wow.
$11,000 bench warrant for a minor traffic violation? Right?
Yeah.
Explain that. And by the way, here's the United States of hypocrisy. Here's me charging congressmen and senators with
Hmm.
conspiracy, fraud, and genocide. So the bottom line is, if I had stayed in America, I would have ended up, yeah, I would have ended up stitched up or dead or framed or whatever.
Right. Behind bars. And so just to return to where we started with this question, like I, I don't understand where the whole, like what, and they do this. They love to make this footnote because it allows the majority of the population to then just dismiss someone, as a kind of cultural conditioning. Like he's white, he's a white supremacist. He talks to white supremacist groups. Like what do you say to that footnote?
Well, okay. First off, I've done interviews. I believe if I only wanted to sit and talk with people who agreed with me,
Right.
I'd be a lonely person, man. I mean, I'd be a real lonely person. I mean, I have not met anybody who understands or agrees with me on everything. I know a lot of people because I have a very spiritual basis. I very much love Islam. I also am a Christian myself, but I know so many more things than most people endeavor to know because for me, truth is God and God is truth. And I
Yeah.
mean that in all seriousness. So the bottom line is that the idea that I'm a supremacist anything is absolutely absurd. And I mean, we can get into World War II and a person who is associated with white supremacy, perhaps later in the conversation. For
Sure.
me to be able to articulate with absolute facts that will absolutely destroy the whole notion of me being a white supremacist,
Right.
but also someone very, very, very famous, someone more famous than me, someone everybody knows, somebody whose
Yep.
first
I
name
think
is
I
all
know
I
who
need
you're
to
talking
say.
about. Yep.
And people think that of him too, and it's a lie. It's an absolute lie.
Well, I have a whole Patreon page set up for that part of the conversation, so we can have it, and we don't have to worry about YouTube or anyone
Yeah,
else, coming after us because I will put that section to the side for people who are willing to go and listen to it as a Patreon member of mine. So I'm
yeah,
excited to have that conversation. I've been waiting to have it with someone as educated as you because I am also have spent a lot of time down that rabbit hole, and I know where we could take that conversation, which is a pretty incontrovertible place, and I'm excited about that. So, well, let's return to that. Let's get into
brother.
what's the difference between Gaza and the West Bank?
Okay. Well, in terms of the people, both are Palestinians, and
Mhm.
the difference really is in the form of government that is being practiced and that they are separated. The people of the West Bank, although they have family in Gaza and then vice versa, there is no way for you to travel from Gaza to the West Bank. Unless you have Israeli approval, you're not going to be able to do that. So imagine your grandmother or whatever your brother lives about 30 miles away, but he's in the West Bank and you're in Gaza. You won't be able to visit them. You won't be able to
Mm.
do that. So that's one of the issues right there. Another issue is that Hamas, which is supposedly the terrorists, who I've met Hamas, in fact, their leader awarded me the key to the city of Gaza about 14 years ago. He
Wow.
was just martyred in Iran last year. But before he was martyred, he had 65 members of his family, including three of his sons, were murdered by Israel. So this is the kind of price that you pay for standing up and doing the right thing. The Palestinians are on the front line. I have nothing but angst and scorn for the PA, the Palestinian Authority. They are traitors. They have been aligned with the Israelis. They literally use Palestinian forces and militias inside of the West Bank
Hmm.
to basically cow the Palestinian people there. There's checkpoints everywhere in the West Bank. It's hideous. I've lived there. I've experienced it. It's absolutely grotesque. It's
It's an
so
apartheid. I
demoralizing.
mean, is it not as clear cut and simply observable as an apartheid as?
It's worse than apartheid in South Africa, and Nelson Mandela and Bishop Desmond Tutu said that as well. So it is apartheid on steroids. It is
Mm.
horrendous. There's been over 1,000 people killed in the West Bank. The settlers are going apeshit over there. They're burning down their trees. They're killing their livestock. They're breaking into their homes. They're ousting people. They just beat an American to death about two, three
That's
weeks
right.
ago. This is all normal
American
for them.
citizen. Palestinian descent, American citizen, was there. He was
17.
beaten to death, 17 years old. Where's
Yep.
the outrage?
Yep. You
Where,
don't even hear about that in the nightly news
no,
in America.
fucking atrocious.
So anyway, the difference also, Gaza has, the sea, it connects to the sea, it's got a border with Egypt, but they're still Palestinian people. And the bottom line is that it's what we call Israel, which is really occupied Palestine. That there is no room for a Jewish state of Israel. It was unlawfully created. It doesn't even have a lawful basis to exist, much less a right to defend itself. As an occupying power, they have a responsibility that's known as a duty of care. If you are an occupying power, then you have a duty of care to the people that you occupy. Would you say that Israel is honoring a duty of care? No.
Not in any way. No.
No. What they're doing is genociding the people, and they're starving them. And they've been doing this. The first time I made it to Palestine was 22 years ago. And I lived in the West Bank several times. And then I made it to Gaza finally in 2008. And I've been there 4 times, lived there as well. So I've seen it on both sides, and it's horrendous. And I've said many times, if I was born in Palestine, you couldn't pay me to be nonviolent. I'm amazed at just how nonviolent they are. Overwhelmingly, they are. Given the things that they endure, I'd go absolutely mad. I would have been dead 50 times over by the age of my teens, I would have been a fighter. There's no question about it. And the dignity that the Palestinians carry is amazing. The Palestinians that have inspired me on levels that people can't imagine. And if a person, I'm telling you, while it's extremely difficult to get into Palestine, especially for Christians, even those that are going there to the holy sites, they're just not allowing, the Israelis aren't allowing people in.
Yeah.
But if you ever have the blessing to go to Palestine, whether it be Gaza or the West Bank, you will be blown away by the hospitality, the graciousness, and just all of the absolutely beautiful people that you will meet there. It's so opposite of what people are told.
I've heard that over and over again. God willing, there is a Gaza and West Bank left with Palestinians in it to visit at some point. History books are written by the victors. That's if people understood even a fourth of how true that is and how false the history they've been taught is, I mean, they would be shocked.
Oh yeah, and they're going to find out. You're going to find out whether you want to or not. It's
that's one thing that the regime in Israel is causing people to take a look at again, and a lot of people are waking up to what actually went down in World War II, and and what really happened, and so
they
I
are
always find
actually
that amazing. They really are.
The dam is breaking, and I know, because one of the things that I've done over all these years, being ahead of people's understanding, is that I really gauge like human consciousness.
Yeah.
And I know another thing too, like as a fighter, although it's been a long time since I've been in a fight, I'm not the guy that people say, hey, let's fuck with him. And even if they do, like, it's been a few years since somebody did that and he backed down, because I do actually switch. I'm a guy who can easily walk away. I don't have anything to prove. I'm not, I'm not insecure. I don't need to prove nothing, man. And plus I'm taking on a bigger fight than some asshole on the street. Like, I have no interest in it. But if push comes to shove and you want to put me in a position where now I feel like maybe I need to defend myself, that like a switch is flipped in me then. And I know who the guy you want to be afraid of. Like, I can see, and it's more often than not, it's not the big guy. The big guys are pussies because they rely on their size and intimidation. But when you meet a guy, first off, I know, like, that size has weaknesses, man. There's a lot of fucking downside to having a big body and whatnot.
Right.
And where you may be strong, you don't have the same kind of flexibility and range of movement and all sorts of shit. Plus, you're going to gas out quicker than me. So, your hope is... I
found ferocity to be my best weapon.
Yeah.
to be frank. And I'm not a big guy at all.
Yeah, but you're a strong guy. I can see, obviously, you work out.
Yeah. And being smaller than most people.
Well, I say all the time, Be careful of the small
Yeah.
guy. The small guys are the ones that get picked on. So a lot of
Yeah.
them learn how to
They get
fight
tough.
because
That's
yeah,
right.
exactly. The big
Very
guys are
true.
more often than not pussies, man. They literally they rely on their size, and then when they meet somebody, it's kind of like, a street guys who fight. Like, I'm friends with Jake Shields, man. That guy's a fucking beast, and
Yeah.
I laugh at the fact that, like, me and Jake, if we went out, if we had a problem, right? If we had a
Yeah.
problem and he's pissed at me and I'm pissed at him, I already know. I don't stand a fucking
No,
chance, dude.
no.
This guy's gonna wipe the fucking floor with me.
Right.
It's
No.
not even gonna be a fucking contest, and
It's a different level. Yeah.
because the guy trains in fighting, like it's
Yeah. And
size means
no.
size means nothing when it comes down to a fight.
No, it's true.
Obviously, if it's two guys fighting, that's why they have weight classes and shit. When you fight at
Right.
that level, but if you have a heavyweight, uh, the chances there could be a middleweight that could beat a heavyweight potentially. There'd be some that could do that.
Right. But it
But
would be, yeah.
but by the time you get to welterweight, or no, almost zero
Yeah.
fucking chance. But in a street fight, the guy who
Right.
weighs, like, literally the last guy who did start shit with me, he was a good 250, 260, easy.
Wow.
The guy had like 100 pounds on me, but I have no doubt I could have beat his ass.
Right.
And because it's a street fight, and I know that guy wasn't going to the fucking MMA gym
Right.
and fucking rolling on the mats and doing shit like
Right.
that. He was relying on his size, and he could see, like, dude, I'm not only not afraid of you, you're starting to make me get excited,
Right.
man, about beating your fucking ass in your fucking pub.
Right.
He literally,
I
he
hear
got
you.
the memo. But yeah, I mean, anyway, as a fighter, what I was going to say is the undoing of Israel, cocky. You cocky,
Yeah.
arrogant twat. If you hadn't announced to the world that the Palestinians were human animals and
Yeah.
Amalek and all that shit, and just gone ape shit, like you own the fucking world. You literally are acting like you, and that is what you believe. You believe we're all your slaves. You believe that this is all yours. You believe our whole fucking role as Goyim is to do anything and everything, and you can us and all. And you acted like it. If you hadn't
Literally.
acted like that, you could have continued this bullshit indefinitely. But you got cocky, motherfucker. That's what I watched. Like, because of their cockiness, even Candace Owens, I just saw today. She said, I will never support Israel ever again. It is a monstrosity. Right. She's on the right, this whole right left bullshit, but there is some,
yeah.
What the meaning to the right is, the right has historically been sucking Israel's the whole fucking time. And it's pathetic, absolutely. And it's so ironic because so many of the right are like conservatives who go to country clubs where Jews aren't allowed. But apparently, like, all these right-wing dudes are like everything.
The contradiction is unbelievable.
It's absolutely nuts. But it's the cockiness that's their undoing. Bottom line. And it's the same thing with somebody on the street, like Conor McGregor or whatever. You get cocky, you're going to be humbled. You're going to be humbled. Like, look at Khabib Nurmagomedov, man. He's like my favorite fighter, and I loved it when he beat Conor's ass.
Yeah.
That guy is so humble, and he does what I do as well. He points up, all praise to God. Like, this is not for and he quit. He quit on top.
He's retired champion. Yeah. Yeah.
Because his mom wanted him to, and he didn't care about the fame. If anything, he didn't like the whole ring girls.
He could have made a lot more money. He just walked away. He was undefeated, champion. He could have easily had another rematch with Conor and made a huge payday.
And he would have destroyed Conor again.
He would have beat him again. Yeah. I don't think anyone would have beat him. I want to get back to, I
think it's going to work now. So we've had our break, and listen, I'll go as late as you want, my brother, because I've had some technical difficulties and I'm all wound up now anyway. So as long as you're able and wanting to go, we'll make sure we get it all done, and you'll have a lot to work with.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that, man. So I just want to finish that part of the conversation. A lot of people don't realize that Gaza that's, I mean, it's all a war zone now, but Gaza was run by Hamas, right? And the West Bank, their government, essentially the Israelis are allowed to govern it, and so the biggest difference, at least before everything became obliterated into rubble, was that Gaza was that was the part that was still run by Hamas. Of course, everything that happens in that part of the world is allowed to happen through Israel. This is what people don't quite understand. Hamas served a purpose for Israel and has served a purpose since its inception. That's why they were allowed to come to power to begin with. And what people don't understand is the level of manipulation that goes on to orchestrate these justifications for land grabs and war and money laundering and et
Here's the
cetera, et
thing, though,
cetera.
even that, like a lot of people are thinking they're smart in that, okay, listen, it is a fact. It is a fact that there was a motive and there was a financial incentive given to support a faction inside of Gaza that became known as Hamas. And this is because they wanted to split the PA from they wanted to split it. They
That's
wanted
right.
to weaken it. They wanted to divide it. But the idea that Hamas in any way is working for Israel. There are traitors. Every place has its traitors, but I can guarantee you this, and it's happening in Iran too. They're finding Mossad agents. You find traitors amongst you, and my policy with a fucking traitor is you're going to die a
Right.
very unpleasant death, boy. You're going to die
Right.
a real unpleasant death. There's nothing, in fact, there's a great quote that I use: the traitor is the plague. He is the worst. It only takes one, and I've been infiltrated and subverted more than once. It's been my undoing, trusting
Yeah.
the wrong people. All it takes is one traitor inside the gate to take down a fucking nation. They're more dangerous than a standing army on your border.
Right.
So, this is why
So,
we need
but
to clean house.
so you were saying though that, um, well, they were like what you started to kind of explain how the PLA was too secular, right? I mean, they
Or
didn't
the
have
PA.
the
The PA,
yeah,
yeah, the PA, yeah.
and then Hamas, which had a more radical Islamic, let's say, flame they could stoke. They preferred that, knowing where they wanted to go in the future with the Greater Israel plan.
Okay.
They knew they would need justification.
Well, I really have to, that is your assessment, but
You tell me you
okay.
tell me what you know and think.
So, I mean, it goes so deep for me that and by the fate of God, I was in London, and I was on a train platform, and I was wearing my kufiya as I do when I go out, and
Mhm.
I noticed an older gentleman. He was walking on the platform, and then he came up to me and or he came by me, and I forget how we engaged, but we started talking. And as it turns out, this man, he was like 95 or 96, and he looked fit as could be, and he was
Mhm.
completely active and completely mentally there. This man, as it turned out, grew up in Gaza, and he was friends, childhood friends, with the man who was Sheikh Yassin. Sheikh Yassin is the founder of the Hamas movement. He is this little
Mm.
gray-haired old man, a lovely man, a beautiful man, and this whole radical Islam thing that they push in America and whatnot. How radical is it that when they were accused of beheading babies, and the fact is that not only did they not, they actually gave coverings to these women, because the Israeli women dress with
I
like
know, I saw that. Yeah.
Western women, and not only did they not, and why didn't they? And why didn't they behead? And why didn't they commit the war crimes that they're accused of doing? I'm not saying no war crimes were committed, but
Right.
I have yet to see the absolute evidence. When you're in a firefight in close quarters and you've got a mixture of people who are armed, you've got Israeli Defense Forces mixed with civilians who are also armed, some of them, including sometimes women.
Right.
I'm not justifying the killing of women or children, definitely
No.
not. However, there to say that there aren't women who posed a threat who don't have a weapon, and the bottom line is that the Israelis or the Jews are squatting occupied land. So they're sitting over there having a rave, And just
Mhm.
a kilometer away, you've got people that are literally malnourished, who are locked
Right.
in, who have no way out. How would you feel? How would you feel if you were inside a big concentration camp and you could hear the music of their festival over there where they're all fucking partying and shit? And I would have thought that an American, if they were going to be honest with themselves, tell me they wouldn't have committed war crimes. Tell me Americans haven't committed war
Oh
crimes.
God.
It's absolutely absurd. We do. And what are we, radical Christians, or what are we? You
Right.
know, what are we? So I would argue that Hamas has been more moral as a fighting
Mm.
force than Americans have been in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Vietnam. You know, like what did we do? We carpet bombed the entirety. We dropped more bombs in
Right.
Vietnam than all of World War II, literally. So you know, the idea that they're radical. Let's put it this way. Here's the simple way to put it. I know this. I know this. Let's say that I'm the biggest fraud in the world, right? I'm lying, I'm cheating, but the whole world thinks I'm fucking the greatest thing since sliced
Right.
bread. When I go to meet my maker, do you think he's going to be fooled by the whole world thinking that I'm
No.
No, he's not. He's going to know that I'm a shyster, that I conned the whole fucking
Right.
world. Conversely, I might be, you know, the second coming of Jesus. What happened to Jesus? He was
Yeah.
crucified, for damn sake. Was he loved and adored? Was Malcolm X loved and adored? He was
Yeah.
fucking targeted. He was fucking killed. And his family was nearly burned alive when his house was firebombed. So my point is that the way to the end to the kingdom of heaven has nothing to do with how you are measured by your earthly brethren.
Right.
It will have something to do with it, but your brethren will be wrong on many things. How many people have you known in your life who you thought were great people, but then you found out later that they were doing this, that, or the other?
Yeah.
God knows everything. God knows
Right.
everything. So if you're a proper Christian and you're a proper Muslim, you know that if you commit a sin, there is a price for that sin. That
Right.
is what keeps you morally grounded and would prevent you from doing these types of things. But when you have been secularized, like the West has been, how many people are really going to church on Sunday and actually doing charitable work and stuff like
No,
that? Not
the
a
two
whole
don't
lot.
go together. No.
No, they do
No.
exist, but they're unfortunately a very, very small minority when you really
Right.
break it down. You've got a bunch of poser Christians, and you've got a bunch of fake Muslims.
Right.
ISIS
Yeah.
stands for Israeli Secret Intelligence Services. There is nothing Islamic about ISIS at
No.
all. I'm more
They get
Muslim,
treated in Israeli hospitals. People don't
literally.
understand what ISIS truly is and why it, you know, who takes care of them, who funds them, who trains them, who arms them. People are just, but all people do is swallow propaganda.
So
That's the sad
yeah,
truth we live in.
the bigger point is that this is why you know, when I've been slandered and you know, like right now I'm being attacked by somebody, and I feel so blessed that I really have over all these years reached a point quite a long time ago, to be honest, where I really don't give a shit about popularity. I don't care.
Yeah.
The things I say, if I wanted to be popular, I'd have to be an idiot to be saying
No.
and doing
Yeah.
what I'm doing.
No,
Um,
definitely not.
these things have
Yeah.
become more popular, and my stock is rising because guess who's been telling you about this problem that we got, which is now so real time in your face that even
That's
Candace
right.
Owens is saying, Candace was getting paid by a Jewish owned company with
Mm-hmm.
that little piece of shit.
Daily Wire. Yeah. Ben
Yeah,
Shapiro.
Ben Shapiro, that little that
He's a little, what a
he
Zionist cuck.
he
What a
is
little rat he
he's the
is.
kind
He
of
is just
guy.
unbelievable.
He's
Yeah.
the kind of guy that you really just want to bitch slap, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
it,
Everything about him, you know. Um, you know, what was I going to say? So I just to put things in context, I want to remind everyone of one thing. You know, we're talking about a culture of people who quite literally the Palestinian to death. And then, you know, first of all, they took literally took up shields to prevent the surveillance of this murder. And then when part of the government said, that is morally reprehensible. You cannot do that. The other part of the government, in unison, stood up and said, yes, they can. And they got those people who were put into some kind of detention, and then they freed them. And they've been on talk shows ever since. That
And
is
I
the culture that we are talking about,
and
right? Like,
I would only dispute. In fact, the majority, the vast majority of Israeli citizens, whether they be called liberal or
right.
or the right wing, they're hardly any different. The approval rating for the genocidal policy
It's like,
was literally 98% in all of the early stages, and it maintained a approval rate of really the only reason why the approval rate went down had nothing to do with any kind of regard for the Palestinians. It has everything to do with the POWs. That's it.
right,
That's it.
right.
Because they value their Jew lives. And so they know that, like, look, if there was any chance of getting even the bodies back at this point, or the ones that may be alive,
Right.
it will mean that you need to do some sort of deal, which Netanyahu has no incentive to. And his real name
No,
is
he'll never.
His real name is Milikowski. They all change their names anyway. He has no Semitic blood in him at all. He's an
No,
atheist as
none.
well.
It's
Um,
Polish, right?
right.
Isn't he
Yeah.
from Poland? I think. Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, it's really hard to find a single prime minister in their history that actually has true Semitic ties to the region and is not just a European transplant or Ukrainian transplant.
The number of
Yeah.
of Khazarians in power, it's like over 90%. It's like 95%.
That's
So
right.
the very few that actually have Semitic blood, they're not really much better. They're a little bit better, but
No,
you know,
any
it's
one
like
of them.
saying somebody who is going to you to death, or the guy who will just you in the ass. I mean, you know,
Right.
is that much better? I mean, not a whole lot. And by the way, I've met like Tanya Bernhardt. She was a journalist. She's now passed on. I've met others, refuseniks in Israel. I was in Israel in 2005, so I met a lot of the quote unquote good Jews. But they still do not do what I would think is required. For me, as an American, as an example, the way that I've lived my life is that to be a true patriot doesn't mean to hate your country, but it certainly means that you have a duty to call out your country when it's taking the moral route of depravity. This is
Right.
not patriotic to sit by and allow your nation to commit acts of moral turpitude and then wave the flag. Your job
Right.
is to sound the alarm. And the alarm should have been sounded in Israel. It shouldn't have even been formed. I repeat what I said
No, of
before.
course.
There is
Listen, I
no
agree with you there. That was all.
okay, there is no legal basis for the creation of Israel.
No,
None.
it was a grab from the beginning. There's no doubt about that. And if
Well,
you
there
know
is
what
in the
really
mind. You may know it, and I'm saying it, but you know the audience may not know that. It really is important for people to understand. And I mean, maybe your whole audience understands this, but I don't think a
well,
lot of
I
people
wish.
do. Yeah.
I don't think they do either. I would be lucky if, well, maybe, well, each of my audiences is different. The one on my Instagram channel understands a lot. They're very well educated as to what's really gone on in World War II. But YouTube, probably not nearly as many, but again, that's shifting too, thank God. I just think it's like, so I think it's dangerous because it's going to take the people who identify as Jewish to disassociate themselves with Israel and that aberration.
So let me put something to you then. Let me put something to you. And I've said this many times. I renounced my U.S. citizenship and I burned my passport in Baghdad in 2004. And I had a sign behind me. This is occupied Iraq. This was extremely dangerous and risky for me to do, and I did. And what I did was I renounced. Now, why did I renounce? I renounced because I absolutely 100% condemn everything, the occupation of
Right.
Iraq and all of these wars that we're doing, all of the cannon fodder of our veterans, the 22 suicides a day. I'm adamantly opposed to it, and I condemn the United States on every level. I renounced U.S. citizenship. I no longer live in the birth of my nation. I've left my
Hmm.
family. I've made that sacrifice because I cannot, in good conscience, be part of a nation where I'm compelled to pay taxes, which are supplying the bombs to bury people, including children, under the rubble. Now, I would argue that if a good Jew wanted to be truly good, they could do exactly what I do and renounce any right of return to the Jewish state of Israel and publicly state that it is incorrect that Jews have a right to Israel, but Palestinians have no right.
Right.
So I
Right.
would argue that Jews could renounce your Jewish law of return right, which isn't really lawful, but nonetheless, if you did that, I'd say respect,
Right.
respect, and it would be no different from what I did by renouncing my whatever
Okay.
benefit I might get by
Right.
having American citizenship, being able to own land, vote in their sham elections, or whatever other benefit I
Right.
might perceive. I have given up that right because that does not sit well with me. My conscience is
Right.
not clean. So this is something I'd like to see more Jews say. I renounce any right
Oh,
of return
absolutely.
to the Jewish state. It may be absolutely to you, brother, but there's not a lot of people. This is a conversation that
Yeah.
not many people. So for the benefit of your audience, I say that, and I hope that it plants seeds that people might start having that conversation, or maybe questioning what I'm saying and looking into it a little deeper. Because once we start driving conversations like that aren't happening
Right.
right now.
No.
Um,
No, they're definitely not. Not well. They are maybe a little more than they were because of the actions of the Israeli regime. But let's
Not renouncing. I've never heard this
no,
discussion.
not
I'm the
renounce. You're
guy.
right. You're right. I mean, no, it's just yeah,
I actually,
because it's
by the
so
way,
wrapped up in identity.
By
But
the way,
but
the other day there was an Israeli who burned their passport, like in the last 2 weeks, and
mm,
yeah, that reminded me of me, and I'm like, there you
yeah,
go. I did that
yeah.
shit 21 years ago.
That's
So
more than once you did it. I know that.
yeah,
Um,
23 years ago the first time, and it's only because they still like, ironically, the Irish passport, the Irish are fucking me over, and I don't have my Irish passport for 7 years. So I'm compelled to use the U.S. passport. Otherwise, I'd be literally like no
you
ability to
wouldn't be able.
travel at all.
Right, right. There's irony for you.
Oh, it's
Um,
great irony. Yeah.
so Ken, I know it's getting late there. I want to spend 20 minutes on a subject that I've never really had a chance to discuss, with anyone else who is as well read and you know in depth about the actual details of what happened
How
as
about one
you
other
as
thing?
I
How about one other thing, brother?
go
Because
for it.
it,
Go
it
ahead.
would be a good thing. We talked a lot about the Jews, and I think we've hit on that enough. But Americans, and I'd like to propose some things to the American people that I see that
Sure.
are viable solutions, because really the last thing America wants, and it would play right into the Jewish narrative, would be revolution. It sounds all glorious and whatnot, but revolution has, how many times has it ever worked out? It works out temporarily, but then you just revolve.
Yeah.
You go round and round and round, and
Right
you
back.
keep repeating yourself. So what needs to happen is, in my perspective, is a paradigm shift, a whole different way of looking at the world. Now, there are a couple of options that states could exercise in the United States. Keeping in mind that a lot of people don't understand this, although they may conceptually kind of have a grasp, it's important to note every state in the Union has its own constitution. It has
Right.
its own land, and it has its own state citizens, its own state taxes. It has all of that already. Now, the reason why the United States of America came together was for the common defense and the common benefit that came from
Right.
it. That common benefit no longer exists because it's Washington, D.C., like
Mm-hmm.
Brussels in Europe, which is pushing Washington, the District of Criminal Values, and compelling so much from the state, including, like, what state are you from?
Well, right now I'm living in Georgia.
Okay. I forget, Georgia's up there, but like Texas is paying like $250
Mm-hmm.
million a year for Israel. Um, what the states of America could do is say, you know what? We are not in line with the policies coming from the federal
Right.
government. We secede. secede from the union, and it's possible that states could say, you know what, Idaho, hey Idaho, over here in Texas, yeah, we kind of see it similar to you. How about if we have a sort of pact and
Right.
trade in some cooperation in terms of trade and all of that kind of stuff, and let's just say goodbye to Washington D.C., man. It's a
Right.
den of thieves over there. We don't want to supply any citizens for these military imperial policies. We're going to go ahead and take our citizens, and we're going to
Yeah.
defend our borders, and we're going to take our taxes, and we're going to benefit our own state. We're not going to be able to take any of that federal money anymore, but we're going to, and then the next thing, the most important thing, is the only state in the union that has its own state bank is North Dakota. Guess how
Wow.
North Dakota's economy is going?
They're probably the
Swimmingly.
only ones not in debt.
It is the only one that is not in debt. It has the highest standard of living and social
Wow.
benefits and infrastructure because it has its own bank. Now,
Wow.
every state could do that right now. They could do that. There's nothing stopping them from doing that. You have to first understand the concept and be able to understand the potential benefits. You need to start
Hmm.
having that kind of conversation. That does not require a revolution. If the feds
Nope.
wanted to come into Idaho or Texas or Georgia or whatever, I think there would be a lot of Americans in the other states who would say, you know what, we're sick of Washington, D.C. too. We are.
Hmm.
We're really sick of this. We're sick of like a Jeffrey Epstein best buddy
Right.
covering for the
Nonstop.
pedophiles and
Yep.
literally like gaslighting the entirety of the United
Right.
States. And you know, we've
Increasing the
had it.
debt.
Like, at
Yeah,
what
we really
point is
have.
enough enough? At what point?
You know, I'm so glad that you said that, Ken. It's good for people to realize that, listen, just because we've given away our sovereignty doesn't mean we need to keep giving it away. There are steps that we can take that are nonviolent, that don't
Yes.
involve, this nightmarish apocalyptic revolution. The founding fathers knew what they were doing, and they set this up so that, at any point in time, as long as the Constitution is at least a little intact, we have a way to get out from under the tyranny of a government that is completely wayward and nefarious. And that
Listen,
still exists. And people
here
need to realize that, and remember that.
here's another one. As a state, you could say we secede. We're going to initiate our own bank. We're not going to take any more federal directives or corruption. And we also shall restore the supreme law in its full status. Any and all acts of Congress, like COVID mandates and all that kind of,
Mm-hmm.
go fuck yourself. We operate under the Constitution of the United States and the Bill of Rights. So
Yep.
Texas or Idaho or Georgia or Nebraska or whatever could be the first state in the union to say, you know what, we see this color of
Right.
law posing as the supreme law. The very law that I swore to protect and defend has been so completely dismantled,
Yeah. Yeah.
disgracefully. Free speech, absolute disgrace. Even having a license for a firearm. Fuck
Yep.
you. The Second Amendment is my gun permit.
That's
I
right.
don't. In
Yep.
fact, why would I want to tell the corrupt government
Right,
where
that
I'm
I'm
living
fucking
and how
armed.
many
That's
weapons do I have?
defeating the whole purpose, right?
The whole point of a well-armed militia is to deal with a government gone rogue.
That's
I'm going to
right.
declare to you how many weapons I have. I don't need a
Fucking
license to have a firearm.
no. People
That's
miss the whole point,
why is this so uncommon? You know, I am an oath-taking Marine. I
Right.
know what the supreme law is about. And it does
Mm-hmm.
not resemble this joke of law that they call law. It is the
No.
color of law. It is an absolute attack on the very thing that I holds the one thing that could hold America together is the Constitution. Literally.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yep.
one thing.
Agreed. I want to ask you this, Ken, because I think that maybe let's table our because we could really have a long conversation about World War I and World War II, and let's keep that separate. I'd love to do this again, but I want to finish on a positive note. I know you're a very spiritual dude. I know you have strong beliefs. Most of them I agree with. Some of them I I am at a little difference with, but I know your spirit, I know your heart, and I know you have a love for humanity and particularly for protecting people who are being truly victimized and oppressed and genocided, and that's why I wanted to have you on. And I want to ask you this before I let you try to get some sleep when once you settle down a little. This, in my opinion, is very much a war on human sovereignty, and I would love for you to share what you believe is the most powerful weapon we have left against it.
Well, it's funny. I have actually tattooed sovereign on my on my arm
Awesome.
there. It says sovereign there. Um, you know,
I love
what
that.
I love about God more than anything else, because here's the way I would break it down. If this was one big Shakespeare play, if everything was scripted, if I'm not actually making my own decisions and God is pulling the strings and I don't even know, like, what is my actual destination? Like, it's all in the hands of God. I would
Mm,
probably curse God. I would say, I hope you're having fun up there, mate. I mean,
yeah.
whatever character I'm playing. But I know that that's not true. I have free will. I am responsible for the decisions I make, and I love God so much. It's akin to being a parent. When
Hmm.
you have kids, obviously when they're little children, you have to guide them, you have to control them, and you have to give them the lessons of life to be able to be ultimately
Yeah.
independent at some point. But at some point, you literally are going to have to let go. And you're going to have to watch your children make mistakes, and
Yeah.
it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy at all. I think that's exactly how much love God has shown us. He's given us free will, and He's given us the opportunity to inherit everything, a world of abundance, of absolute abundance. It's
Yes.
completely a lie that we're overpopulated and that we don't
So
have enough.
true.
That is an
Yep.
absolute lie. The fact is that we have more than enough for everyone on this
Absolutely.
planet to have a home, to have land, to have food, to have water, to
That's
live a
right.
dignified life. It is all there waiting for us. And it's within our capacity. We have it in here, and we especially have it in our heart. It's there. It's not going to lie to you. Your heart, unless it's been blackened, will tell you. It tells you the genocide in Gaza. You were
Hmm.
told all these things, but you've seen enough body parts now and children crying and limbs ripped off and all of this kind of stuff that your heart is aching. If you have no heart, you're not feeling this, but everybody
Hmm.
is feeling this who has a heart. We have it within our capacity to exercise our sovereignty and to celebrate our differences as opposed to
Yeah.
fighting each other over these differences. I think people who are black should be proud to be black and should be the best kind of black person that they can be. I feel the same way about white people. I feel the same way about a Muslim or a Christian. I'm
Right.
not into atheism, and I would seriously discourage people from rejecting God. I really would. I know for myself there's a big consequence for that. I would argue that the most precious thing that we have within our sovereignty, and this is where your sovereignty is the most important, we have a soul in here. We have a
Hmm.
soul, and that soul is eternal. This
Hmm.
thing, this thing that we call life, the flesh and blood, the body that I walk in, this is very temporary. In
Yes, it
terms of
is.
eternity, it's a snap of a finger. It's over like
Not even.
that.
Yeah.
And while it is precious, and I certainly am so blessed for this beautiful life I've been given, and all these gifts God has provided me, and all these trials and tribulations, I thank Him even more for those. I've been
Hmm.
heartbroken. I've been molested at one point. I've been abused. I've been slandered. I've been libeled. I've been betrayed. I've been homeless. I've
Yep.
been imprisoned. I've been tortured. I've been poisoned. I've been dead on the ground, and I've come back from the dead. I am most grateful for the hardest times of my life because it gave me an opportunity to either choose the path of a victim or choose the path of somebody who understands better. So, as a homeless person who experienced it for a period of time, I look at a homeless person in a different way from somebody who's
Yeah.
lived in a gilded cage their whole life. I look at them as a human being and I understand what it is that they're going through. I understand what it's like to be figuring out where's the spot that I can sleep, where I'm gonna have the most safety
Yeah.
possible, where, I'm sleeping with one eye open, and, you never get truly to sleep, and you're finding some plastic to ball up to make into a pillow and things like this.
Right.
It allows me to empathize and connect with people through those hardships. I do not choose the victim path. I believe that God expresses the greatest of love to those of us who have the greatest of ability and have shown the greatest spirit and heart by hardship. I believe that
Mm.
the hardships define us. And when you, like combat as an example, you just don't know how you're going to deal with it until you're there. And
Mm.
when you do get there, you're going to find out who your brothers are. You're going to find out exactly
Right.
who they are. The warriors, the firemen, like my dear brother Rudy Dent, who was the chief fire investigator, who on CNN
Mm.
said he lost 343 of his brothers that day.
Right.
These are not colleagues, man. Firemen are like family.
Right.
He
Right.
lost 343 of his brothers that day, and so he would be damned before he would turn his back on his brothers. And
Right.
he died from all the toxic smoke full of
Of course.
asbestos,
Yeah.
and
I was going to say
he
he died
died
of
from
cancer.
that.
Right.
He died of that many years later. But my point is that service and sacrifice, is that not what Jesus did for us? Is that
Mm-hmm.
not what he did? He served and he sacrificed for all of us. That is the most noble man who's ever walked this earth, who happened to be the Son of God. God bless him. I love him. I love his
Mm-hmm.
mother. And I think that we as men in particular, and we need to reach down and grab a hold. Hopefully those two balls are
Mm-hmm.
still there and actually become men again. And I also want to say I pay homage to the women, because you women out there, you are the future of all the future generations. You are superior to me as a man, to all men, in your ability to carry the child. I merely plant the seed, and you carry that child in your womb. You
Yeah.
build a connection with that child unlike any man could ever build with a child. You then
That's
give
right.
birth to that child, and then you lactate and you provide the milk to that child. And you should be in the home with that child and teaching that child and guiding that child while the man is out earning the money and bringing home that and protecting you and that child. There is nothing more beautiful that anyone could ever do in this life than be a
Right.
mother, and only women can do that. Only they can do that.
True.
So as much as I am a man, and I understand the male perspective, I have the deepest of love for women, and I'm sick of the way women are sexualized and prostituted
Yeah.
and just displayed like they're some sort of slave.
Just such
It's
inverse, this planet, this world, the patriarchy is the root cause of the inverse, but yeah, it's,
listen, the man is, in my old school Christian way, the man is the king of the house. God is a father. He's not a mother. But
right.
when it comes down to the children and it comes down to the household, a wise man and a real man is not going to sit there and tell his wife how to cook and how to take care of the
No.
kid. The woman will know how to do that. And the woman is not going to tell the man, he can't go out and hang out with his mates and go have a beer.
Right.
Listen, shut up, woman. I'm going to go out and be with the boys. All right. I will be
Mhm.
back. I won't be cheating on you. I'm not going to be running around or doing nothing like that. But men need their time with the men. The women need time with the women and the kids. And then we have time together as men and women, as families. We need to restore
Right.
the family and revere the family as they did. And I have to say this on a note of another policy that is so beautiful that people will not know. Women have gone mad on many levels, and men have gone mad and become cucked on so many levels. I'm not going to
All
sit there
engineered. Yeah.
and do what my woman, I'm not there to sit here and dote on you every second, sweetheart. I have a job to do. I'm at war, actually. So,
Mhm.
this is why I don't make for a good husband, man. I'm constantly at war.
I'm gonna say, so you're still single, right?
I've been single for many years now.
I
It
would have never
is.
guessed.
Yeah, I mean,
No,
and
man,
it
it's
has its price. I mean, of course, I love intimacy. Of
yeah,
course, I've made love to,
right. No, no, I know.
we. I don't know. I don't know what man wouldn't. I don't know. Something's wrong with you, mate. But I'm also
Right,
don't lust for it. I don't
right,
need
right.
it. That is not what I need to give my life satisfaction. But
Yeah.
a family is the most blessed thing that you could have.
Absolutely. I think we were talking about the most powerful weapons we have in this war on sovereignty. And I think that, you touched on many of them: empathy, family, love, what Jesus came here to teach us for, relationship to God, the divine and invincible and, completely immortal nature of our soul. And the fact that this existence that we're experiencing, as great as it is over in the blink of an eye, and we are so much more than just this flesh and blood. And if we can remember that, it's much easier to identify other people as the souls that they are, because they are souls, and then empathy comes much more naturally. And I think that's a great place to end this very exciting, very controversial conversation with you, Ken. I want to thank you so much for your time. Listen, I'd love to have another conversation, whenever your schedule allows down the road, and let's just talk about World War I and World War II, and I want to hear what you know, and I'll tell you what I've learned, and what we can have a very robust conversation about what we believe happened and why we believe it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. As controversial as I know what we'll talk about will be, I'd love to have that conversation with you down the road if you're up for it.
Absolutely, my brother. Yes, I'd be
That'd
happy
be
to
awesome.
do that.
Okay, my friend. Listen, I know it's getting late there. I'm sorry I kept you up. I appreciate your time so much, Ken. Keep doing what you're doing, brother. We need voices like yours in this world, as controversial as they are. You're saying some very important things, and I appreciate your time. I'm going to for everyone who's watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. Ken also has a YouTube channel. Ken, tell everyone where they can find you and follow you and help support you.
Yeah, I've got like 83,000 subscribers on YouTube,
Yes, you
but
do.
man,
Yeah.
I it just does not work for me. I mean, the algorithms and the shadow banning. So
Oh, believe
really,
me, I know. Yeah.
X is the X and Patreon. I have a
Okay.
Patreon, and I also have X at Ken O'Keefe 1TJP. Just put in Ken O'Keefe and you'll see me. And yeah, it'd be great. I mean, I just because I got hit from my so-called ally, I've lost a few subscribers and got down
Mm,
under 100. I'd really like to get back over that century mark. So
yeah.
yeah, I mean, if I've said anything worthwhile here, perhaps a few of you might come over to my X and subscribe. That's a great way to show
Absolutely.
some support.
Definitely. For everyone who's listening, listen, let us know how you felt about the interview in the comments section. Comments help drive the algorithms and bring attention to the show. So, love us or hate us, let us know. And if you do love us, drop us 5 stars or write us a review. Ken and I both are trying to overcome a lot of algorithmic suppression, to say the least. And so we need all your support. And thank you guys so much for staying with us. Ken, thank you again, brother. I'll be in touch when this is going to come out, and we'll collaborate on some clips across our platforms.
I will say just one thing. Although I don't post much new content on YouTube, I do have a lot of old stuff that I was doing reporting
Yes, you
from
do.
Gaza and whatnot. So if you do go to that channel with 83,000, there's a lot of stuff that goes back
There
15
is.
years
I was
easy.
just watching it. I was just on it. There's great stuff on there. Really good stuff. And I love posting stuff from you as well. I'll send you a message from my Instagram,
Excellent.
because I don't think you follow me, but I'm
Yeah.
always using clips from yours. Yeah, I'll send it to you. It's the one Faust Chicho. It's my name, but it's the one first. Yeah. So
Thank
I'll
you,
hit you
brother.
up though. We'll be in touch, brother. Thank you so much, Ken.
God
Have a
bless you,
good
my
night,
brother.
man.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.